following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Blurson and Blursball.
Futurama!
Hello, darkness, my old friend, and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna, and here with me is a very confused-looking Mark Radulich. I'm sorry, did I throw you for a loop with Simon and Garfunkel Yodel? I can't remember how they pronounce it in this series, in the season.
Oh, that's why you're doing that. I thought we were walking over a bridge over troubled water.
No, I just couldn't resist that scene because that's actually one of my favorite moments of the season.
Did that scene take place at the zoo? Let me ask you a question. I know you do a lot of cooking. Seriously. I know you do a lot of cooking at home. You cook for your husband, cook for yourself. You know, it's part of a dietary thing. You're trying to do better. Do you use a lot of parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme?
Ground thyme.
Oh, fuck you. All right.
What? No, ground thyme is the key ingredient in like my favorite chicken noodle soup recipe.
I was doing Simon and Garfunkel songs.
I know, but I still had to say something to shut you up.
I know. You figured out my weakness, not going along with the gag.
Well, years of working with Robert finally paid off. All right, so despite that very disturbing opening there, we are talking season 2, Only Murders in the Building, brought to you by, let's see here, there's actually a decent amount of production companies here. So
That's
we
because
got
everybody in the cast is a producer.
pretty much everyone cast in like a lot of other people. So Disney, Hulu, Rhode Island Avenue Productions, another Hoffman Story Productions, 40th Share Productions, and 20th Television. So season 2, of course, picks up right where season 1 left off. We have the death of the board president and generally a very unlikable woman, Bunny. And our 3 main characters, Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, played again by Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, are the main suspects. So, like last time, we're going to skip talking about this episode by episode because I don't think you guys just want to hear us say repeatedly, "Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny." Yeah, because that's really the. This is a great show. It's very funny. All of the actors are bringing their A game. I know a lot of people don't like Selena Gomez because of her singing, and if her style of music is not your forte, if you're not into Disney pop, I get that, but she is great in this, and she bounced.
She is. Well, she is. I wanted to jump in there, but I could see where her acting would also grate on people's nerves because she kind of does a very flat affect delivery. Everything is. She comes across almost like a alien character in Star Trek. You know, the various types that have no emotions. You know, everything that happens to her is, I don't want this to reflect. I don't want my life to be all about my trauma. I can't believe you lied to me, Cara Delevingne. You old men are pretty funny and pretty annoying. Turn page. It's just very. I like her, I think, because she's playing between Steve Martin, who's a wild and crazy guy, and Martin Short, who's, you know, just toning it down from Ed Grimley. You needed that third person in there. You needed to be the hinge in that V. You need that hinge to be slightly less emotional and over the top. So I can see where her performance would annoy people, but I appreciate it because it balances between Steve Martin and Martin Short.
Absolutely. There's multiple times in this season where Charles and Oliver get completely sidetracked talking about something. There's one episode where they're climbing all the stairs of the Arconia, and Oliver goes into this hole. It's like, oh, I just got my knees done. I guess like I need a break. And Charles is like, I got my knees done. And they start talking. They got their knees done by the same guy. And they start talking about it. And Mabel's just like, focus, people. And again, that happens a lot. And it's really funny. And it works well because that's the kind of thing you would see. You'd see these two old men suddenly just start prattling on about something completely different. And Mabel's just
wonder how...
Go ahead.
It makes me wonder how much of this is ad-libbed.
That's a good point. I mean, this is a very smartly written show, but we are dealing with two actors specifically who are known as comedic geniuses and know how to improv and run with it.
I was gonna say, have you ever seen like Steve Martin or Martin Short's old like 70s stand-up? It's fucking great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, Steve Martin doesn't get, because everyone knows Steve Martin from when he made the jump from stage to screen. You know, with like All of Me and The Jerk, a classic.
Three Amigos.
Amigos. Hey.
His appearance on the Muppet Show is still one of my favorite all-time episodes. I love
so good.
Well, it's a great episode too because what they do is they actually stage it like Kermit forgot that they were supposed to be hosting auditions for new talent, and Steve still came in and he's like, what, I don't get to be on the show? So he ends up auditioning for them and doing various acts.
And I don't even think people, like in 2022, I don't even know how many people remember like the old 80s Steve Martin jerk era of stuff. Like, you know, the Steve Martin, the early Steve Martin stuff, he was biting and satirical, kind of angry. And then he makes these movies and then he gets a little bit older and now he's doing Father of the Bride. Because that's what everyone knows him for. Oh, he's the Father of the Bride guy.
Great movie.
Yeah, but like I would say, if you ask any youngin, what are they called now? Zoomers, Zillennials, Istanbul, not
Generation Z. Just call them Generation Z. My age is showing. Okay, I just turned 38.
Wait till you hit your 40s and your whole body falls apart.
It already has.
Well, then you're doomed. Ask anybody in their 20s right now, what do you know Steve Martin is? Oh, he's the guy in Father of the Bride. I think that's the only answer you get. I don't even think people know who Martin Short is. You know, Martin Short, I think, entered the cultural conversation with Ed Grimley. I think that's what people know him as. But like, he had a fairly early movie career as well. Like, I can still remember him being in Inner Space and screaming, "I'm possessed." But to get back to what we're talking about in terms of performance, while Steve Martin in this one gives a more subdued performance than anything he's done in like Roxanne or The Jerk or any of those movies where he can go from he can be very physical with his comedy, you know, with his body, and it's like he's not like a Chris Farley type where he's like an odd shape or like heavy man. But I would say Steve Martin did a fair bit of physical comedy in his time.
Oh,
certainly
absolutely.
Martin Short did.
Yeah, absolutely. His earlier stand-up, he was extremely physical with it. Very John Cleese Ministry of Silly Walk style.
A lot of waving of the arms in and out of
exactly. Which of course I don't think he can quite do anymore because of the studio will only insure those new knees for so much.
He's in his 70s. I'm gonna let him be stiff. But again, just to round this back so we can move this forward. If you have two really good classic stage performers like Steve Martin and Martin Short, you're even at their their silver age, you still want that from them. You don't want Steve Martin and Martin Short, especially the Martin Short, to be static. You want them to to really go for it. That's why they're there. Exactly. So you need a Selena Gomez to balance that out, or it's just too. The funny thing, you brought up Three Amigos. The funny thing about Three Amigos was, they were all, they had, like, Steve Martin had to kind of play the straight man because he's there with Chevy Chase and
Martin Short, yeah.
And Martin Short, yeah. You said it, and I was like, wait, what? Yeah, it's Martin Short. Who is that third amigo? Oh, yeah.
He's staring at us. He's in the background of the picture. We've cut off Selena Gomez's face, but there's Martin Short just staring into our soul.
No, we're infamous. That means we're more than famous. Now remembering his lines. But like Steve Martin kind of had to play the straight man because you have fucking Chevy Chase, who was known for throwing himself down flights of stairs, and Martin Short, who is this over-the-top silly comic. There's always has to be in a classic comedy structure. There always has to be that one guy holding it all together, or one gal. and that is Selena Gomez here.
The anchor, the straight man.
Right.
Yeah. Comedy works if comedy work needs someone to suffer. That is the truth. Comedy works because someone is suffering. You need someone there who is basically going, why am I being forced to deal with this?
Right.
And that is Selena Gomez in this. She is watching these two old men suddenly prattle on and get hyper, and she's just like, how has this become my lot in life? She loves these guys, and she will stick with them to the very end.
Much like my daughter, she has to spend most of the series throwing a paper bag over her head going, I'm so ashamed.
Oh, your daughter's now becoming Sylvester Jr.? Well,
remember when you made that comment? Well, I shared that with her. I was like, hey,
which comment did I make?
You were like, you need to get a TikTok of your daughter of like you need to end your TikToks of anything you do with your daughter throwing a paper bag over her head going, I'm so ashamed.
I said that.
I shared that with her. That is Jonas's new thing. Like anytime something happens, he just hands her a paper bag.
I am influencing your children.
Oh, yes! Absolutely. They are running between that and Auerbach. My wife, this is why she dates. She has to get the fuck away from all of us. We real quick, we had a conversation on Friday. I was not in a great mood, and I was like, "Can you please tell me anything positive?" And she's kind of going through all these things, and she takes a break for a minute, and then she's like, "I want to tell you about some of the things that you've influenced." And she's going through this list of stuff, and she goes, "Oh, and by the way, your children will still randomly shout Auerbach at me, so thanks for that."
Radulich and Broadcasting Network destroying the next generation, one podcast at a time.
Radulich and Broadcasting Network slowly causing women over 30s a stroke, one woman at a time. All right.
Hey, I still can't believe you haven't given me a stroke at this point.
Still working on it.
All right. So, and yeah, like I do appreciate Martin Short is the ball of energy in this group, but the fact is that he has toned it down quite a bit. I love Martin Short, but his last few movies and TV shows, I mean, I'm just going to say it, not a fan of the Jiminy Glick era.
Oh, God.
And
I hate Jiminy Glick.
Yeah, it was too over the top. It was too out there. It was too just, again, bouncing off the walls with the guests on his show being the anchors, so to speak. And that's never been the style of humor that I really like. It's just Martin Short is a hilarious man. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. One of the few regrets I have in this life is missing his performance as Leo Bloom and The Producers with Jason Alexander as Max Bialystock.
Him and Steve Martin, I think, are touring.
Get out, really?
Yeah, I can show you after the show.
Awesome.
Yeah, Steve Martin and Martin Short. And Nathan Lane, too. Nathan Lane's in this. So he was a big part of season 1. He shows up a couple of times here in season 2. This is just sort of another example of how this cast has actors that can really go for it, but keeps them a little more subdued. And that's kind of the beauty of this show is that it kind of takes it to the line of going over the top and then goes, that's not that. This is not that show. So we're going to let these actors who are brilliant. This is a brilliant cast.
With one exception.
Who?
Who the hell brought Amy Schumer in for this season?
Oh, you're so mean. Why are you bullying that woman?
She's not funny.
She was great here. They didn't give her that much to do. She played an ass. Amy Schumer can play an asshole woman really well. And that's what they asked her to do here, and she did it fine. What is your problem?
I still hold a grudge against her for her comment about animation at the Oscars.
Okay, your personal grudges with actors does not change their performance in any way, shape, or form.
Sorry, I am genuinely not a fan of Amy Schumer. I feel like her entire gimmick is that she knows that she is not the most attractive woman in the world, but she's going to flaunt and act like she's the most attractive woman in the world.
I think she's cute, but that's neither here nor there. My point is everybody in this cast is a brilliant professional actor. I'm making a point of saying that because we talk so much between TV Party Tonight and Damn You Hollywood. We talk a lot about how we don't like Hellraiser, for example, didn't have the world's greatest cast. It was like C level at best. So every once in a while, when you watch, especially us, given the muck and mire that we tend to trade in, when we watch something with a all professional, all brilliant cast, and when I want to be specific about this. Actors know, Robert made a comment of, it's not that you tilted the camera. You have to know why you tilt the camera, when to tilt the camera. actors know when to go for it. Professional, it's more than just line readings. It's more than just inflection. It's more than tone. It's you have to know when to do something, when not to do something. And that is the art of collaboration with a director who says, yes, go for it here. No, control yourself, Damon Wayans there. Yes, do this accent here. No, don't do it there. That kind of a thing. When you have a cast that you can trust and give a little latitude to, you can really create some really wonderfully entertaining art. Only Murders in the Building is that show. I can't say enough glowing things about it, about a show that we typically don't, the kind of show that we typically don't cover on this network. No one's hitting anybody else over the head with a sword or punching in a hallway.
Pretty much. Still remember when they first announced the show on Disney Plus Day years ago, and they just announced that they were doing a new comedy called Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Short, and it was one of the notes I wrote down because you told me to take notes on what was being discussed that day, and I was the only person on the network to watch the entire thing, including all the notes on the stockholders crap. Still waiting for that half hour of my life to get back to me. And I wrote it down and I thought, ooh, this sounds interesting. And I mentioned it to you and it didn't really go anywhere because we were all too busy talking about the announcement that we were getting a Fantastic Four movie and they weren't going to replace Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. And then when the trailer dropped for this, I'm like, oh yeah, oh my God, we need to watch this.
All right, so we're going to talk about first.
All right, so okay, so like I said, we're not going to talk about this episode by episode. We have a lot of returning casts. We got a lot of new casts. We get, and thank you, by the way, for pronouncing her last name because I actually never get it right. Cara
Delevingne.
Delevingne, yes, comes in as a new character. Her name is Alice Banks. She is a owner of an art gallery, and she is Mabel's love interest. And may I just say, I freaking love the comment from one of the fans of their podcasting. It's like, I like that Mabel's dating a woman this season. Very progressive. It's just like, thank you, studio notes.
Yeah, that wasn't meta at all.
This show gets ridiculously meta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I said I called it the minute that I saw her at the gallery and saw what she did. Is like, she's going to do something stupid as an art project with this tragedy. And when Mabel walks into the studio and sees a guy dressed as Tim Kono with the gunshot wound, and Alice taking pictures of a woman dressed as Bunny bleeding on the carpet, I was just like, yep, called it.
Yeah, the show plays with misdirection a lot. The finale, and we don't need to get too into it until you're ready to talk about it, but like the finale where they misdirect one way so they can get the one person to come out and admit that, you know, it was them, it was me, James, I was the author of all your pain. I was like, okay, look, she's a pretty gal and she gives a fine enough performance in what role she's given, much like Amy Schumer, that I accepted her as part of, you know, this part of the menagerie. But, you know, other than that, I was like, okay, yeah, it's funny. Only Murders in the Building plays a lot with conventional mystery structure. But as I said about Smile, playing with conventional structures is fine. That's how you win over a general audience when you do it well.
Definitely. And yeah, she gives a pretty good performance considering that her most prolific role, I could be wrong, but I believe her most prolific role other than this was playing Enchantress in that god-awful Suicide Squad movie before James Gunn came in and said, let a professional show you how it's done, folks.
I'm not blaming that on her.
No, I'm not either. I'm blaming that on a horrible director.
Yeah.
And I can call him horrible because then I watched that movie Bright that he did for Netflix. And I seriously, oh my God, I just wanted to like throw something at the TV. I hated that movie so much.
Okay.
It's like, you got Will Smith to say fairy lives don't matter. Screw you.
Uh-huh.
Wow, it's a good thing you put the disclaimer up this time. Okay, so we also get more of Tina Fey as Cinda Canning.
Ooh, Tina Fey this time. Like, I really like Tina Fey as an actress. I know that, you know, if you're slightly to the right of anything, you're supposed to hate Tina Fey and everyone that looks like her. I like Tina Fey. I thought of all the weekend anchors of the past 20 years, weekend live anchors of the past 20 years, I thought her and the other blonde-headed broad.
Amy, Poehler? No,
Yeah,
not
Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler. Yeah,
Amy
I get
Poehler.
her and Amy. I mix up her and Amy Sedaris' names all the time for some reason.
I always thought Tina Fey was the smarter, less annoying version of Janine Garofalo. Like,
Ooh, I could see that.
Yeah, I enjoyed her, as unfair as I thought it was at times. I enjoyed her Sarah Palin. I've always liked Tina Fey. I don't always agree with her point of view, but who gives a shit? She's an actress and a comedian. I don't have to. And I think for the kind of characters that she tends to play, given her traditionally nerdy look, I think she does a hell of a job here. Tina Fey is kind of she was an annoyance in the first season. She sort of gets elevated this season to like villain.
Yeah, we genuinely think for a while that she is actually, as our main characters call it, the criminal mastermind, and we find out she's done some very disrespectful things to elevate her career.
It's alluded that she's in league with Michael Rappaport. I fucking love Michael Rappaport.
Detective Krebs.
And look, and not to turn and not to do a thing that me and Jesse tend to do with The Wire. Go, hey, remember when? Remember? But hey, remember when Michael Rappaport was in Higher Learning and he's crying at the end of that movie about, I just wanted to be an engineer. I don't think Michael Rappaport gets the credit that he deserves for being a really good actor.
He does play the dirty cop insanely well. He even nails there's something about his accent. He's got a very good New Yorker accent, but he
sounds like a moron.
Yeah, it's not just a New York. It's a New York. I haven't.
Hey, Fungal, you know what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, he really amps up the cartoony aspect of it.
Yeah,
and I love that.
But if you ever actually hear him talk, he's not that much of a Goomba.
Well, obviously he's an actor,
right? And so he knows when you hire a Michael Rappaport, you know what you're getting. You know what like tools he's bringing to the project, and he gives you what you're paying him for. Keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. And yeah, I am going back. Tina Fey in this season it's interesting because she is not an actress that you see playing, well, a bitch very often. She usually plays very likable characters. And even if they are not, just on text paper likable, there's still a great charm to them. Cinda Canning is amped up this season to be a nightmare. She is just so unbearable. I mean, I love that she actually tells her assistant to get every piece of cilantro out of her salad. And then she's like, I want a sandwich. And it's like, no tomato, no bread. I just want turkey on tinfoil with bread on the side. And I'm a picky eater. And even I'm going, okay, that's a new level of WTF right there. So I absolutely love just the spitefulness and hatefulness that Tina Fey brought to that role, especially again, since this is not the kind of character that she usually plays. But every second you hear her voice and every second she's on screen, you want to just slap this woman.
She has an exchange with the woman who, spoilers, will inevitably end up being the killer this season, and who's her assistant. The name this escapes me right now.
Poppy.
But she's Poppy. Yes, my favorite bagel. What do you want?
Great line.
Yeah, that is a classic line. But she's talking to her about something, and I think Poppy is like trying to confront her, and it's of course she's deflecting and pushing her off. And she's telling a story about somebody else, as this cast is wont to do. Martin Short, that's like half his dialogue, is telling stories about somebody else. And Tina Fey just kind of punctuates it with, yeah, that woman was a cunt. And then saunters out of the room. And you're like, oh, that hurt me. That yikes. Yeah, Tina Fey can have some very biting delivery.
Definitely. Can't help but feel they took a little bit from her role as 22 in Soul and added a bit of that flavor into this. Just, I still remember that line, and so it's like, I'm going to make you wish you were never born. I just love how completely over the top they made her celebrity status. This is a woman who we actually get a brief look at her schedule when Poppy is organizing everything, and she's got underwater Pilates, and she gets a vocal massage. Yeah, it's just you look at some of the stuff, and it's like, who comes up with things like this? Where does this kind of stuff come from?
I don't know. There's my schedule.
Well, your schedule is dealing with a lot of us, so we always pray for your soul.
Hey, look, there's November.
Yep.
It's color coded.
Lighting a candle for you, pal. I'm not Christian, and I'm lighting a whole cathedral worth of candles for you.
That schedule either attracts women or repels them. There's no in between. There's definitely a lot of like, oh my God, you're so hyper organized. I love that. Or, oh my God, you're so hyper organized. Get away from me, you psycho.
You have to be hyper organized. You're dealing with the collective nut jobs that work on this network.
It is hard to run a cult without a schedule.
Oh, we're a cult now?
Oh, have you not been to the latest meeting where we decided this?
I'm sorry, I missed the minutes.
Okay.
Who was taking minutes? Yell at them.
You don't take minutes at a criminal conspiracy, Shamrock.
They took minutes in this show.
They did.
So we get a couple of really clever. One of the things I like about the show is that it's not the same pattern and style for every single episode. They do experiment. I think we agreed one of our favorite episodes last season was the one that was taken almost entirely from Theo's perspective, and it is done entirely without dialogue. Very clever. This one, we get a couple of different ones. Firstly, we get an episode where we go through Bunny's last day on Earth. And our main cast are barely in this episode. It is done entirely seen through Bunny's eyes as we see her last day on Earth and what she did, who she met with, all the things she did, her decision to not retire and move to Florida, her decision to stay on as board president. I love the little bit when she gets off the elevator, and when the elevator is stopped, the air conditioning has stopped, and she manages to get it working. But it just for a few minutes, you're in an elevator with a couple other people. One of them is panicking. I don't think they confirmed it, but I'm pretty sure Charles has claustrophobia based on his reaction there. And she gets off and she says, "You know what? I just realized I hate the heat." And just a few minutes in that hot elevator, and she's just like, "Why would I want to move to Florida? You live in Florida. Why would somebody want to live in Florida if they can't be in a hot elevator for less than a minute?"
The nor'easters mostly, but go on.
But again, it's really great one. You skip a little, and again, Bunny is a very unlikable woman. We saw so much of her in the first season where her main plot line was she hated our main characters, she hated their podcast and the attention it brought, and she was working to get all three of them evicted.
Right, which is why you needed an episode this season so that you as the viewer are not left with a "who cares that she died" feeling. The whole thing, this whole show is structured like a pulp mystery novel. And if you, as a reader, if you don't have some connection to the victim, you're going to spend this entire book wondering why you care about who killed her, other than you just want to know. There has to be more investment in the victim. And when all you got in the first season with it, she's an old nasty broad who's trying to get our heroes thrown out of the building, and it seems unfair. You have to do some repair work essentially. So they spend an entire episode, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, you see things from her perspective. You feel somewhat sympathetic for her, but then you're also given an opportunity to see things from Nina's perspective, and there's your first misdirect, because they start pointing the camera at Nina as the murderer. And then, so when the next episode comes and they're dealing with kind of looking at her and seeing how all of that ends, there's that flow, there's that connection from Bunny to Nina, and then from Nina to the next thing. That's one of the things that makes the writing of this so strong, is that they know that there has to be enough connective tissue that it's not, some shows get away with sort of the cheap cliffhanger ending to keep you going. Like, bingeable shows, the structure is leave them hanging at the end of the next episode, so they'll leave the streaming channel on for hours at a time. That's why Netflix drops all their episodes at once. They want, there is money to be had in the amount of time at once a viewer stays on a channel. So if you do like me and you wait for all the episodes to drop, because Hulu drops them weekly, if you wait for all the episodes to drop, and you binge it, every episode should end with, "Oh, I need to watch the next episode. I can't just turn this off now." which is very effective, by the way, because I know with Orange is the New Black, that I started watching that at 8:00 at night and binge one of the seasons and binge that till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I did not sleep.
Oh, I've done that several times. More often than not, trying to binge something for you.
Blow me. Anyway,
real quick, I want to go back to Bunny and her
Yeah.
influence on the season, but real quick, there is something that's been bugging me about Nina. So we find out Nina is the new board president,
right.
and she is apparently even
God,
more
I thought they were gonna Tiger Mom her. She was gonna be like one of these just that's what I'm looking for. Just
unbearable,
overbearing fucking Asian women. You know, like, because that's now a big stereotype. Is every Asian person on TV is either a ninja or an overbearing monster. You know, what are they again? Tiger Mama.
Tiger Mama.
Yeah,
No,
I thought they were going with her.
The thing I never quite understood is that they find out in an early episode that she, as board president, is going to do an addition to the Arconia, and we see the picture of it, and it's some kind of, it looks like a glass blimp on top of it. I cannot fathom what the hell that was and what the plan was and how that was going to, reflect on the Arconia, what it was going to do for the Arconia, what the purpose was. Did you have any idea what that was?
Look, it was, we're going to change this ancient building. That's what it was. You know, you have, the nice thing about this show is that it can touch on things. It doesn't necessarily have to spend a lot of time exploring them, but it does bring them up. And there is a consternation between conservatives and progressives, not necessarily politically, but definitely in terms of this group of Hejna wants things to change, and this group of Hejna wants it to stay the same. And there are equal arguments on both sides for why that might be a good idea one way or the other. But everyone kind of commits to it with religious zealotry. No. Keeping things the same is the way things should be, and we should never progress, and we should leave things alone, and don't change my building. I don't like change. And then there's, the other side with religious zealotry going, we should mow it all down and build a car park and an amusement park, and why can't we get into the future? And my gosh, there's so much out there that we could take advantage of, and yet you people remain in the dark ages. And they are at loggerheads, and that is all that was about. It didn't really matter. Like, if you're asking me like the specificity, I couldn't even tell you what it was, because it's not an important detail. The detail is in Nina and Bunny not being, coming to a head over whether or not the Arconia should evolve or not.
All right. Well, going back to Bunny, other than her flashback appearances, she is also with us, or rather the actress Jane Howdyshell, if I'm pronouncing that right, is with us with a new character, Mrs. Gambolini.
She was great. That woman is every woman I knew in Long Island, down to the hair.
Mrs. Gambolini was the
parrot. You're talking about the parrot. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the thinner woman, the thinner elder woman who was friends with Bunny. Yes, the parrot. Sorry.
Oh, you're talking about Uma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uma takes over as most annoying tenant at the Arconia this season. She is horrible. Every time our characters come in, she's like, oh, look, it's the murderers. You want to go talk to them. They're the ones who probably killed Bunny. She is just she plays it with so much disdain, and it's really enjoyable how venomous she is.
They just got her from one of my old Sons of Italy picnics back in 1989. Just plucked her out of time and said, here, read this dialogue. Okay.
But yeah, I love the idea that Bunny had this parrot, Mrs. Gambolini, and all of her years of insulting the tenants. That's all this. I just love the idea of this bird coming. I've heard so many times about this story about a parrot ending up in a pet shop, and it's like, yeah, the owner died. This parrot. I mean, parrots live for so long. It's like this parrot has probably changed hands a couple of dozen times, and the parrot is spouting horrible stuff. And this pet store owner's just like, I don't know who to blame for this. This parrot has seen so much crap. I don't know. This parrot probably saw when the Germans marched into freaking France.
Yep, the parrot's really funny. Hey, one of the things that happens in this season is we get to see the stepdaughter.
Yes, we get an appearance of Lucy. This is Charles' stepdaughter from a previous marriage. She is kind of run away from home. It's implied, it's not outright said. She got into a huge fight with her mother on the night of her mother's fifth
Yeah,
wedding. I think that
something like
she says
that.
she's got five dads, I think is the term. So I'm assuming that's where that falls in. And there is just a wonderful bit between her and Charles, because when she first comes in, I was really afraid they were going to play her off as the too cool for you stepdaughter, that they were going to say, it's like, I just need a place to stay. Can I just stay here? Because that's so cliche. But no, she genuinely loves Charles. And she openly says, like, of all the dads I've had, you're easily my favorite. She's very close to him. She misses being with him. When he starts singing the song that he, sang to her as a child, she smiles. When he says he's going to make her favorite omelet, and he starts throwing her peppers, she smiles. And she becomes very, very crucial to the investigation, because she's the one who knew about all the secret passages. She used to play in these when she and the other kids in the building played hide and seek. But there is a lot of drama there, because we find out that Charles just texts her out of the blue in the first season, and you think there's some animosity and bad blood between them. It turns out Lucy's mother told him flat out, "You're not allowed to contact my daughter." I
needed to
go ahead.
Yeah, I needed to react to that, because I watched that episode, I think either yesterday or the day before, and I was in a good mood. Made some changes to my personal life. And, the first 2 days of work this week were really solid. I was in a good mood. Things were going really well. So just give you my state of mind when I'm watching this episode, and it hit me like a punch in the face. The exchange of dialogue that triggered me was her talking to him in the kitchen, and she was like, 8 years is a long time not to hear from someone, something along those lines. And Steve Martin looks back at her sort of forlorn, just without words, and finally just mutters out, "I didn't think I was allowed." Instantly burst into tears, like sobbing, like had to turn the episode off. I needed to shake it off. Inconsolable crying. And the reason it hit me so hard was because I know how Steve Martin felt. Yeah, I knew how Charles is the name of the character? Yeah. I know Charles felt in that moment. I was telling you before, and I don't not to get into anything too specific or too personal, but this has not been a great year for me. There were some significant personal changes that I've talked about on other shows, and it's not really related to what we're talking about, so I'm not going to get into it. But it was related enough to where when I was telling people about some of these personal changes, a lot of the reaction I would get was, "Why don't you just leave? Why don't you walk out of your marriage? And, you'll see your kids, share custody and all of that." And, my biggest fear in life is not anything necessarily related to my marriage. It's that I won't be close enough to my children. I don't want to be Steve Martin looking across from my daughter and having to say, "I didn't think I was allowed to talk to you." That's worse than anything. The idea of it. Worse than anything that has happened to me this year. Worse than anything that's happened to me in the last 5 years. And I need to remind everyone, nearly died of cancer twice. So I can't imagine being the parent whose control and ability to access their children is taken by their spouse or their partner or whatever, and you're made to feel like you can't see your children for one reason or another, or you legally can't see your children. This shit can get ugly real bad, real fast. Not worth it to me. Not worth anything. Not whatever bad I've suffered this year. It's not worth even the idea of entertaining the idea that I could be Steve Martin, Charles, look across from my children and go, "I'm sorry, I didn't think I was allowed, or I actually wasn't allowed to contact you." And I lost it. Just lost it. Because I know just in general how that might feel. The idea of like, you want to be there for someone, and you're feeling like you just can't for whatever the reasons are. That is that breaks my heart. So even if I didn't necessarily have like a personal relation to it, I think just being generally empathetic to the idea really hurt. It really hurt. It hurt, and it was such a weird thing because the show doesn't evoke that kind of reaction. It's not that kind of a show. There are moments here. There's moments with Mabel and the deaf kid from the first season that I think are poignant. Later on, there's a subplot with Martin Short getting a DNA test, see whether or not he's the father of his alleged son. Turns out he's not. Nathan Lane is, and it's the product of an infidelity. And when the son says to him, like, if you're not my father, I don't know who is. Because over the course of this season, there's a little bit of consternation between the son and Martin Short, but not a tremendous amount. And even that gets resolved.
It's nowhere near as bad as it was in the first season.
Right.
No, they've clearly buried the hatchet over over Martin Short's money troubles from the first season. And yeah, it gets started because what's his name, Will, has to do a DNA test as part of his son's ancestry project for school, I think it is. And there is something admirable to Oliver's reaction to it, to finding out that no, he's not the father, but wanting to hide that from Will. I absolutely love the line, I'm so Greek I could declare bankruptcy and no one in the world would help me.
Message. Kids, because Greek went bankrupt and the world said, nah. That happened. Yeah, to go back to like the show has poignant moments and just wrap on my own thing. You know, when the son says to Martin Short, like, oh, you know, if you're not my dad, then I don't know what a dad is. And they hug and, you know, and that whole minor subplot is resolved. It was a nice moment. It didn't cause me to fucking cry, though. Martin Short and Lucy did. So I just wanted to share that.
But each of the characters do go through their own arcs in this. We have Charles getting invited. Basically, the infamy of his podcast has sparked interest in a reboot of the TV show that he was famous for, Bravos. But he finds out that he's not going to be the lead. He's going to be Uncle Bravos. They brought in this new character.
Look, here's the thing. It's again, I kind of relate this back to Smile and just like typical TV tropes. It was very much like, hey, we're going to bring you in and just utterly humiliate you. Everything is going to be bad. You're going to be in a wheelchair. You're going to have dementia. You're only here because of the nostalgia factor. And oh no, by the end of the show, you're wonderful and you're out of the wheelchair and you don't have dementia anymore. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think we like to call that the Robert Downey Jr. and Ally McBeal clause.
Yeah.
It's like we need to make absolutely sure that if you end up going to jail, we are not writing ourselves into a corner.
Well, it was just so. Here's the thing: if you watch enough television and you pay attention to this stuff and you talk about it as much as we do, it comes across as just a smidgen contrived. And I was literally waiting. You know, I made the joke last night about, you know, Halloween. You know, like there are just sometimes the way things end and are wrapped up too neatly that you expect hummingbirds and doves to fly out and clouds to part and the sun to shine on them and a rainbow in the background and chains are falling off. Like, ugh, come on, enough.
Yeah, but then we get Steve Martin in a wheelchair going soap. Yeah, so we got that. We've got Oliver dealing with his, you know, the question of let's get Maury Povich out here. Are you the daddy?
I think one of the more poignant subplots of the show, dealing with specifically with Steve Martin, besides him and his daughter, was him kind of confronting. And there's threads of this throughout the entire show. Everyone's confronting some sort of trauma that they've had. So you have Steve Martin kind of dealing with the trauma of what happened with his father, and it coming out through like the investigation of the painting that he's in, the rather sexy painting with his balls out.
Yeah, our new favorite phrase, the Jiminy Sack.
So they my new band. They're opening up for Guar tonight.
That was, folks, that's the line that Mark actually texted me. Usually when we're watching a show, we'll text each other funny lines, just like, that was funny. And the first thing this man texts me about season 2 is the line, your father's Jiminy Sack. Yep. That's the impact this season left on him.
Well, you know, balls. Anyway.
There's supposed to be a naked man on this wall. Where are the balls?
Dick and balls. I don't want to leave my kids. This is me in a nutshell, everybody. Anyway, the two sides of Mark Radulich. Yeah, but the more poignant thing that he kind of deals with is him dealing with the trauma of the loss of his father. His father, I think got arrested or something. And then he turns out his father was cheating and was like in some sort of like weird polyamorous throuple with these two other women.
And then it was one other woman because the one woman was pretending to be another woman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it turns out she was in an abusive marriage, and Charles's father got arrested, I guess, for getting into a fight with the abusive husband because he was trying to defend this was Shirley MacLaine's character, who always puts out an amazing performance because it's Shirley fucking MacLaine. You know, this woman is a legend, and it was great seeing her in this brief role. I love seeing her just play the world's biggest snob. It's like, where's my cocotini? A cocotini has coconut. That has chocolate. It looks like it was just so funny. I love just how pompous she plays it.
And then you have Mabel dealing with like the trauma with her father, and I don't recall what exactly was the issue there, but
stomach cancer.
Right. Okay. I should have remembered that. Yeah. So he, I guess, dies of stomach cancer, and she had a relationship with him, and he's gone, and so there's a lot of that going on in this show. But because the show is not necessarily, it's one of these shows that I think deals the best with trauma by not dealing with it too much. Because here's what I think has happened in modern society is that we have now, the pendulum is now swinging too far in the other direction to where we're over recognizing mental health. This is a big thing on TikTok. Not everyone's a narcissist. Not everyone's PTSD is going to dominate their life. We all have had, the human experience can be traumatizing. The difference is you are either functional or you are not functional. If you are not functional, there are resources to help you get functional. If you are functional, this shit's okay. It is okay to have been through some stuff as long as you can function and keep going, keep running up that hill, as it were. And so one of the things I like about Only Murders in the Room is that it recognizes that Charles has gone through some stuff. And because of that, I think he has a line about, I spent a year getting into a relationship and then X amount of time getting out of it. And then like 4 years before I'm involved in anything else, something along those lines. Like clearly these relationships have affected him to the point where he makes decisions like to not talk to his daughter for 8 years.
It kills me though, because that scene is one of my absolute favorite moments. Not only because it's a wonderful speech, because the whole thing is going on while they're supposed to be on the lookout for the killer with the glitter bomb, and you see it go up in the background, and whoever triggered it gets blown back, and there's all this glitter going everywhere, and the juxtaposition between this incredibly, very deep.
It's a nice use of foreground and background.
Yes.
Which you don't get to see a lot of because you don't get a lot of creative camera work in today's fictional media.
Not gonna lie, I actually had to rewind it because I was so wrapped up when they're saying, and then suddenly I see this flash of red in the background. I'm like, what the hell? And I rewound and I'm like, oh crap, the glitter bomb.
That's funny. I had to rewatch it a few times too. Wait, what? Like, why is something blowing up in the background? Because a lot of times I'd be watching this, I'd either be at work, on my break or something, or I'm watching it and 87 people are texting me, and I'm like missing details, like enough to get the gist. But that was another one where like I was like texting with people, I was watching it like on a small screen, and then I see that thing blow up in the background, and I'm like everything has to stop. I need to know why this is blowing up here and what this is in relation to. But the other thing is like
the fact that Oliver made a freaking glitter bomb, 2 pounds of glitter, a tub of rubber cement, and just a nugget of C4. Just like I'm just gonna say, where the hell did Oliver get C4?
Walmart. Listen, specifically in Florida. But like again, dealing with it by not dealing with it, to crib a line from Endgame, you have Selena Gomez's character who has her own traumas, and but she's functioning as an adult. It's just causing her to be guarded with people, and then she lets her guard down. Carol Devine fucking lies to her, and she guard right back up again. So I like the fact that the show recognizes we are all struggling with mental health issues, but we are all not dysfunctional either. It's a nice balance of this pulpy mystery with some reality to it. These are believable, more or less, situations and characters in this show, which is a nice change of pace. One of the things that I wanted to bring up before we start to close out is I gotta talk about Amy Ryan. Amy Ryan continues to be the best actress in this entire show. She is a good old Beatty from The Wire.
She is great. She's only in for 2 episodes.
But they're the best.
But she manages to seduce Charles back into her little web because she is just so... She's insane. She's really
in
is.
prison, and she's like, "Are you breaking up with me?" Mind you, she stabbed him in the first season. She was the killer.
Poisoned and stabbed.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's Amy Ryan. I don't know where she got the sexy seductress act from, but damn, it works.
I know. So the fact that he actually brings her the blueberry bagels that she wanted, and he has to break up with her by proxy using his stunt woman. Yeah. Side note, Jane Lynch, you are a treasure.
That's okay. So I'm glad you said it because that triggered what I actually wanted to. I had to kind of vamp with Amy Ryan, but I'm glad I did because it needed mentioning. One of the things that's great about this show is the anatomy of a scene. The thing that Robert and I often talk about on DMU Hollywood is that, yes, you need times for there to be exposition explained in a show or a movie, but you don't necessarily need it shouted at the camera dead on, okay? An anatomy of a scene is we have information that needs to be conveyed, but how are we going to do it in this visual medium that is stimulating to your audience? A really great example of this, Michael Rappaport talking to Selena Gomez while hitting a heavy bag. Brilliant. It's subtle, but it's brilliant. Because he's trying to intimidate her. She's trying to stand up to his intimidation, and everything is done through punching a heavy bag. It's almost less about what he says to her, because a lot of what he says to her is, "You're fucking stupid. You're fucking stupid." And I'll tell you why.
Your name is stupid. What kind of a name is Mabel? Mabel's an awesome name.
You know, I'm fucking smart. I'm smart. I want my respect. Wait, that's something else. But I know, I'm fucking smart, and you're not going to get me. You think you're not a fucking detective. I'm a detective. And there's an allusion to he got Tina Fey. Turns out it's Poppy. But there's a lot of that going on. And all Selena has to do is hold the bag. But there's a subtlety in her body performance in holding the bag that kind of says, you can punch me all you want. I'm not going away. I'm in your face. You don't intimidate me, motherfucker. I mean, that's great. Those scenes between Amy Ryan and Steve Martin, and then to your point about the stand-in, Jane Lynch, is that her name?
Jane Lynch, yeah.
Yeah. The performance between Jane Lynch and Amy Ryan, to where Jane Lynch, you forget that it's Jane Lynch and it feels like Steve Martin talking to Amy Ryan, because Amy Ryan lets you believe that she believes it.
I love
that's great subtle acting.
Yeah, there's a couple of pages here and it gets awfully porny. You want me to keep going? Oh, absolutely.
The point is, we talk about this with like professional wrestling. When the wrestlers believe it's true, they'll make you believe it's true, and that is the magic of pro wrestling. The magic of drama is when everybody involved believes it's true, and so you as an audience are right there with them, and you forget you're watching a performance.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
So let's go ahead, and we're running up here and close to an hour. So unless there's anything else specifically you want to talk about, I think we need to talk about the ending.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, compared to the last season, I thought this ending was just a touch contrived and just a touch confusing. We get a lot of different things wrapped up pretty fast. I'm not upset about the misdirection with Cinda Canning. I knew it was not going to be so easy to make Tina Fey the murderer. It's like, it's not going to happen. I knew there was something else there, but it does get very confusing because there's multiple layers with this painting and with the killer not only framing them, but like toying with them. As it were, moving the evidence around. It's like the knife that Bunny is stabbed with is Oliver's knife, which she puts in Charles's apartment, and then she takes the painting and then she moves it into Charles' apartment as a way to just totally screw with him. And then on top of it, it turns out that this is all wrapped up with the podcast that had started this whole thing, All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma, that kind of launched Cinda Canning's career. And that's a big key. And I'm just going to go ahead and admit it. I had to wiki a few things because I was getting confused.
I'm not gonna lie. So I watched the last 2 episodes this morning, and I watched 2 or 3 episodes last night after I got done recording Damn You Hollywood. And it was either late and I was posting stuff, watching in bed and falling asleep, or this morning I was being texted by 106 people, and I was like, not entirely sure what I missed here, but fuck it, Alexis will take care of it. So take care of it.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, like
Your show.
No, the ending is just a touch contrived, and it's a weird thing. So they fake out the killer by thinking that Charles is dead. And I get why they're going with that, but they leave it on a cliffhanger note with a commercial break. We know he's not dead. You know, I don't mind throwing the killer for a loop, but the fact that they play it up on the show like it's a serious dramatic moment, like you actually expect your viewers to think this is real. Come on, guys. We're not that stupid.
They thought they got us to think that they killed Chewbacca. You know, some people I'm sure bought it.
So either way, so the killer's revealed. Krebs is found out to be a dirty cop. I am glad we got more of Detective Williams. She is not as big on this season as she was last one, which I missed her, but oh my God, I love the bit with her coming in with her baby and pretending she doesn't know a chorus line. And this actress is a West End performer.
Yeah, of course I know chorus line.
That was great when she launches into this song. Oh my God, I love that. But then we get our cliffhanger for the next season. This has been renewed for a 3rd season. And I think this 3rd season is going to be interesting because it looks like we're going to do an in media res style with a flashback. This picks up 1 year later. Oliver is directing a play on Broadway that Charles is in, and it's not Paul Rudd, but Paul Rudd's playing the role, and he is playing a jerk, which is
Ben Gilroy is the character's name.
Yeah. I really want to see Steve Martin and Paul Rudd on Broadway together now.
All right, so let's go back. Yes, it was contrived, but I think so much of this series is them bubbling around and then falling up. There's not a lot of ingenuity or intuitivism in what they're doing. They kind of figure some things out, but a lot of stuff gets just told to them or falls in their lap. So the fact that as the heroes of this picture, they set up a trap to catch the villain to where they're going to misdirect, they're going to point hard at Cara Delevingne for a second time in this show, and they're going to make everyone in the room believe that that's where they're going, so that the real killer is like, no, you fools, it was me all along, Austin. I was the author of all your pain, James. Get on with it. Sorry, I got lost in my own clips.
That's the second time you've done that clip in your head.
I actually meant to do it was me, Austin, it was me all along, but out came it was me, James. I was the author of all your pain. Watch way too much wrestling and movies. Anyway,
that's your job.
True. No, well, never mind. But I didn't mind it because again, it's you've seen this done a million times before. I like the fact that it's something that these 3 people would have thought of because it is such a known thing to do. The fact that someone was dumb enough to fall for it, we can sit here and debate the merits of. But sometimes, and this is a thing that happens too. Sometimes, you talk about, and I think they even mentioned it earlier on with Nina. A guilty conscience is a heavy weight to carry around, and sometimes people are just ready to confess. All you need is a little push. They pushed. She confessed. Does it happen in real life? Meh, not really. But, it's fine for drama. And I was okay with it, and I thought everyone kind of played their roles well, and I thought it's a fun scene. Yeah, you don't really buy that Steve Martin's dead, but who cares? As far as the ending, sort of the post-credit ending with Paul Rudd and Steve Martin, I'm intrigued by the antagonism. The fact that, I know what you did. Ooh, that's like screenwriting 101 right there. I had a line that I was going to try to work backwards from for a screenplay. And the opening line was going to be, I've come here to kill you. And the other guy goes, you're late. I just couldn't figure out how to make that work. Well, how did we get to this place? You better back off. Why? What are you going to do about it? I know what you did. Ooh, what did he do? Now I'm intrigued. Season 3, everybody.
Like I said, they build it up. They talk about, oh, this has been such a crazy year. So this is going to be with a lot of flashbacks. We're going to see what this last year has entailed, where things have gone with this new character, Ben, who I'm guessing died of poisoning, considering he's got the blood coming out of his mouth and
He
everything.
definitely wasn't stabbed this time.
No, not this time. And I am so looking forward to Paul Rudd being on this show next season.
Would have been funny if he turned to dust.
Shut up, Thanos.
I'll fucking do it myself. Just give me a minute here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I almost forgot. We were talking before about a couple of stylized episodes. I mentioned the one about From Bunny's Point of View. We get a great one with a party that Mabel ends up throwing for our artist friends. And Oliver comes in with this 1970s. It's essentially a murder mystery game,
Right.
but they show it with them all dressed up in 70s garb, which is so much fun. Very stylistic choice. We get a great bit you mentioned before with Teddy coming back to help Mabel, and she does not speak. She doesn't know sign.
Right.
She's the only person. So she keeps, and he only gets like so much of what she's saying when he reads her lips. So I love this brief bit where he writes down what he's saying to her, and you actually see the text layered over the scene. It's beautifully done, very creative.
Yeah. The director of photography in this really should be applauded. There's some really exceptional camera work in this, which is something we only talk about in big blockbusters because that's the one that everyone sees. That's what everyone notices. And when it's not robot balls swinging in your face, people will react to a really well shot scene. What gets neglected is something like this because it's not going to be known for its camera work. But the camera work in this is really done well. It's something that needs to be called out.
And of course, we get the blackout episode. We get a whole freaking blackout through New York. We have everyone. I love all of the people in the Arconia bitching about it. It's like, well, don't you have a generator? What can you do about it? And they're just like, will you people chill out?
This is not our first blackout.
No, it's not. New York has a history of blackouts.
Well, and when every light is on, they can fucking, light up the sun. Yes, occasionally you're going to burn something out and there's going to be a blackout.
We got that. We got Lucy hiding in the hidden tunnels and everything throughout the building. We got our main characters climbing up with Oliver carrying 50 pounds of dip. Quoting a freaking line from Last of the Mohicans when he has to leave it behind. I think that was Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah,
I think that's what that line was. So this is a wonderful series. We really can't recommend it enough. We're thrilled that it's going to get a third season. Like I said, it just got renewed this summer. They haven't announced yet when.
I'll tell you this: it's one of the few I'm willing to keep doing.
Yeah,
because I have cold stopped on a lot of TV shows, and if you pick them up, that's great. But there's stuff that I started, like Umbrella Academy, for example. I'm not doing the third season. If you do it with somebody else, that's fine. But I there's just a lot of these I just don't want to go back to. Lock and Key, Robert Winfrey's Christmas Present. I'm not making him do season 3. This is one of the few where, partially because it's you, and you can record during the day when I'm not typically busy, but also because it's one of those shows I'm willing to keep talking about because there is something to talk about. You can't drag me into most fucking Marvel or Star Wars shows because it's all tripe. You hear that, MCU's bleeding edge? It's all shit. But, and unless there's a busy businesswoman who don't need no man and there's a talk about feminism, I ain't coming. That's a plug for our She-Hulk review. But I'll talk about this. This has some meat on the bones.
Definitely. Not to mention, this is a show. It is rated MA. It is mature. There is a lot of graphic language, but this is still a show that I think so many people can enjoy. This is one of the few TV shows that I love just as much as my family loves. My parents have access to my Hulu account. We gave them our password.
Feels like a show written for mature adults, and I don't mean elder people. I just mean this doesn't. So much of what we talk about feels like it's written for fucking 7-year-olds. It feels nice to be able to watch a show where not everyone's being raped and murdered, but it still feels like it's for an adult.
But yeah, this is a show my parents love, show my sister loves, show we love. It is great. It is funny. We're thrilled. We can't wait for the 3rd season. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. Were there any other points you wanted to bring up,
I'm
or
good.
have we covered everything?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So, yes, if you've got Hulu, please check this show out. You are not going to be sorry. It is so much fun. And on that note, I believe we are going to move into plugs.
Well, Alexis can't stand to be apart from me. It's true. Alexis loves me. She plays coy, but she loves me. And she's always like, when are we talking about something else, Mark? When, Mark? When? I'm like, all right, you're a little obsessive, Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, but
I'm obsessed about my job. The fact that you come with it is just,
I believe,
just my albatross to bear.
We're gonna go with my theory. Alexis Hejna loves recording with me and can't bear to be apart from me. So next week, our noon recording, our little dalliance in the day, is Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Why are you making me talk about this?
Because apparently there has been a lot of people who threw fits because since Evan Peters is such an amazing actor, there has now been a lot of people who have suddenly got interested in Dahmer, including a very disturbing amount of Reddit feeds about how attractive the real Dahmer was and how cute he was.
Oh, apparently he was a cutie patootie. Have you not seen the Zac Efron version of this?
That was Ted Bundy, different serial killer.
Oh, were they all just like supermodel attractive?
Actually, there is something to a lot of the serial killers that they use their good looks and charm to lure their victims. This isn't an isolated thing.
Got it. Moving on. So wait, you're making me talk about this because there's meat on the bone and something to talk about?
There is.
Fantastic.
There's been a lot of controversy with that series. It's impacted. There's been a lot of talk from the families of the victims on whether or not they were consulted for this. And either way, it is a very, very intense series that I do think deserves to be discussed.
Works for me. All right, working backwards. This past weekend, we had some canned ham for you. Myself and Sean and Benjamin J. Cologne. When are you getting him on the Talk Sandman? Have you figured that out yet?
Not yet. I talked to him actually last night because I thought he was going to come on our discussion tonight of Midnight Club. But he has not. I haven't finished the season yet either, but he hasn't. He doesn't have time to,
Gotcha.
Fit all that in.
All right. So speaking of fitting it all in, we dropped 2. What? We dropped 2 episodes. I got a disclaimer now. I can get away with that. We dropped 2 episodes of our Long Road to Ruin series from back in the before times. Of The Crow, the original Crow, and then The Crow City of Angels was part 1, and then Crow Salvation and Crow Wicked Prayer, I believe, was part 2. It dropped on Sunday the 16th. We got Black Adam coming out this Friday, the first major motion picture for superhero motion picture to hit the big screen since Thor: Love and Thunder, which came out in July. So in honor of that, me and Jesse talked for 5 minutes about World War III, and the rest of the time I just made dick jokes because that's me on source material. Check it out. Hey, it's a return of the gag reel. The gag reel, Alexis Hejna. You know about that gag reel. You've experienced the gag reel, haven't you?
Multiple times.
Yeah, you've been on that gag reel multiple times.
Well, this is why we love Jesse. He's the only one of us who actually edits.
There's always the best part of source material, if you ask me. So check out the World War III source material featuring Black Adam that Jesse and I discussed. That dropped on Monday. Monday night, the Misfit and Miscreant himself, Ronnie Adams, and I talked the Of Michael Myers trilogy. That is Return, Revenge, and Curse of Michael Myers, plus H2O. And that, my friends, outside of the Rob Zombie ones, is all the Halloween movies. I'm done with this series.
The world is done with this series, trust me.
Yeah, really. Last night, speaking of which, Ronnie came back for a second time he's a glutton for punishment. He, Robert Winfrey, and I reviewed Halloween Ends. Tonight, Alexis Hejna and Robert Winfrey are discussing Midnight Club, as she said.
Jason Teasley may be joining with us.
Assuming he has his voice back.
Yeah, feel better, man.
All right, this weekend, it's all Hannibal Lecter all the time. We have the 2-part Long Road to Ruin on the Hannibal Lecter movies. First part is Silence of the Lambs, and then I believe the second one is Hannibal. Hannibal. And then part 2, which drops on Sunday, is Red Dragon and... oh gosh, what is the Hannibal Rising was the 4th one. And then Robert did an Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, a solo run on Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, talking about Hannibal Lecter. Might have been the most popular one, the most downloaded one in the before times that he's ever done. So give it a listen. It'll be good stuff. When I get back from seeing Black Adam with my kids, we will review it on Monday the 24th. And then, as I said, our afternoon dalliance, me and Alexis Hejna, will be reviewing Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, at noon on Tuesday. Hey, the Superblog team up goes to hell. I don't know if you know that, Alexis, but it does. And myself and Pat Mullen, our contribution to the Superblog team up, which then went to hell, is Hell Comes to Frogtown, starring Rowdy Roddy Piper. We did a commentary track for that. Jesse's entry for the Superblog team up is Batman Punisher Lake of Fire, according to the schedule. And I'm not sure if you're recording anything next week, but that's about it. That's all.
You mean besides Dahmer?
Besides Dahmer, yeah. I don't know if you've got anything else with any other of your other boyfriends that you're recording with. So,
I hate to say it, I might be taking a little bit of next week off because this weekend for Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic, we are making our appearance at our final convention of the year. This is Anime NebraskaCon in Omaha, Nebraska. This is one of the biggest anime shows in the Midwest. If you're in the area, come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yes, after this, I am taking a nice little sabbatical, which basically means I'm probably going to just sleep on my couch for 2 days straight.
Okay, then.
I'm fully aware of my limits. So, but yes, of course, our shops are still open on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. A reminder that we are getting ready for our big Black Friday sale and that we will be doing our charity drive from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. For every order that is placed from both of our online shops, we will donate $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And of course, if you're also in the Midwest area, you can check out our stuff at Level 1 Game Shop, Mind Games and Magic in Lee Summit, and now Smallville Toys and Comics in Hutchinson, Kansas. So again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
All right. Hey, this is your show. Take me home, baby doll.
Am I pressing the button or are you pressing the button?
No, honey, you can press my buttons anytime. I'm playing with my phone.
Okay, then no, seriously, I was like, am I pressing the end button or are you pressing the end button? That was an honest question.
Listen, you're a busy businesswoman who don't need no man. Press the fucking buttons already.
Be well, be safe, behave.